Hello and welcome to today's video. This is Stephen Gardner, best-selling author of Taming Wall Street, and I have a special guest, Ron Yates, here with me today. Ron is a fellow YouTuber and very successful man out on the East Coast, and we've been working at getting this interview together for over a month now.
Can't believe it's been that long.
Yeah, with just both of our busy schedules. But Ron, thank you for being on today's video with me.
Oh, no problem, man. I was looking forward to it, and I only wish we could have gotten together sooner, but it's great to be here, man.
So, what are your thoughts? You and I have both been saying that this next stimulus check is going to happen, and I've had a lot of doubters in my community because of how long it's taken. But we finally know it's going to be a $1,200 stimulus check.
Yeah.
There is going to be another stimulus package. Like, what were your thoughts to see that everything you've been saying is finally starting to happen?
Well, it's kind of like, I think in general, I'm just a pretty optimistic person. I do typically kind of try to think a little bit outside the box, but, for the most part, it's kind of like, okay, I think that, both sides, both parties, whether it's, Democrats, Republicans, everybody understands that a lot of people are going through some pain right now. And it's very clear that, the average American needs some financial assistance. So I figured that they were going to make something happen. Didn't know exactly how much it was going to be, but I was confident.
Yeah, I was pretty sure that they were going to just do what they did in the CARES Act, as far
Hmm.
as 1,200 for adults, 500 for children. I felt like the Democrats went way too big,
Yeah.
asking for the 3 trillion. So
Yeah.
I knew it went, but even then, I think right now this is a
Hmm.
starting point, and I
Hmm.
think there's going to be some negotiation back and forth.
Yeah.
So will the unemployment remain $200 a week, or will it go up? Will it, will the $1,200 check be one time, or will there be
Hmm.
another one?
Hmm.
I think it's going to depend on these negotiations. I think it's
Hmm.
going to depend even on the coronavirus and whether they can get that thing under control in the next 30 days or so. But was there any part of the new stimulus program that's coming out that caught you off guard?
um, Not really. I mean, yeah, I don't think any of it did. It pretty much played out as I expected. I mean, personally, I would say I kind of thought we would see a little bit more of a sooner or faster response from Congress in terms of getting the stimulus checks out. That was my personal opinion. But at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, this is an election year. And so part of me just kind of wonders, yeah, okay, how much of this is strategy on their part? We don't want to spend too much rather than putting out maybe three different stimulus checks. If we delay it a little bit, get a little bit closer to election, uh, kick out that stimulus check, get people up kind of emotionally. Maybe that could be more beneficial to them while helping the American people. It's kind of hard to say though.
Yeah, I've been saying on my channel, the Democrats went too big and the
Hmm.
Republicans went too slow.
Yeah.
And so we'll just kind of see what the final outcome is with that. And you know, it's just such a weird time that we live in.
Hmm.
Never in my life did I expect to see the U.S. economy shut down over a sickness threat.
Right.
And there's going to be, sadly, there's going to be a lot of people pushed into poverty, and at the same
Hmm.
time, there's going to be a lot of people that see new opportunities. There's going to be tons of new businesses
Right.
and lots of money to be made. And I
Right.
think it will just depend on what people how people move on it, and how quickly they're able to recover
Oh yeah.
from these financial setbacks. But one thing I like to ask people
Hmm.
when it comes to money, uh, you know what what was the what was the example or beliefs you had about money based on your childhood? What was your childhood like, and what was your relationship with money growing up compared to being an adult?
Wow. Okay. So when I was growing up, definitely didn't grow up privileged at all. I'm actually from New York. I live in Georgia now,
Oh, okay.
and I grew up within a single parent household. I have one brother, and we were tight knit. And my mom always taught me the value of a dollar, and we never had much, but what we did have, was all about saving for her. And as a small child, I just kind of like watched her. But growing up, I saw different material items in the world, and I equated those items with success. You see a big house, you see a nice car, and you just automatically assume that was success. And so growing up, it was kind of like, okay, I was a car enthusiast, I still am. And not only were cars my passion, just working on them and racing them and things like that, but I associated that with success. And what I realized was that um, you can buy these things, and then you have a cool car, for example, right? But if you buy them the wrong way, the car owns you rather than you owning the car. And that was a lesson that I learned early on. And I realized how basically um, you know the 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 artifact, or the vehicle, or the house, that doesn't dictate success. Later on, after going down that route of being a uh, later on going down that route of realizing that this vehicle owns me. I have to wake up every morning 6 o'clock in the morning, go out to this cold car, go to this job I don't like just to keep this car. I was like, hey, I can't do this anymore. And that was the realization moment for me. And then I shifted from having so many things I couldn't afford to beginning to figure out how to save more, how to invest more, and how to get my money to work for me, and then let that money pay for the toys. So
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. I had um, the examples that I had growing up. Now, have you read Rich Dad Poor Dad?
absolutely.
Okay. So I kind of had a similar situation. My parents were great. We didn't ever want for anything, but we
Hmm.
certainly weren't wealthy, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And we would go into the store, and my mom would say, look around and then pick something off the discount rack. Like I can still hear her saying
Yep.
that. But I had because of the Boy Scouts program, I had
Hmm.
access to wealthy families, and I
Hmm.
saw the way that they behaved with money. Now, my
Hmm.
parents were very good savers,
Yes.
but didn't know a lot about investing or creating streams of income or owning businesses. They learned that later in life,
Hmm.
and ended up doing fairly well for themselves. But
Hmm.
this example that I had growing up was become a good saver, and then you've got to put that money to work so that it can grow, right?
Right.
And that's when I was introduced to books like Richest Man in Babylon, Think and Grow Rich,
Hmm.
um, how to win friends and influence people. Those classic books.
Yep.
Um, but for me, it was learning this discipline of being a good saver, and then how do I put that money to work where it's going to earn a good return without taking on large levels of risk.
Right.
And
Right.
so yeah, so growing up in Utah,
Hmm.
that was kind of the example that I saw was very very normal, middle class, and then kind of upper middle class wealthy side, and being able to distinguish between the two, and then saying, okay, when I get older,
Hmm.
I want to go into business for myself, I want to
Right.
become a good saver, and I want to own assets that will produce interest for me.
Hmm.
So as you grew up and became an adult,
Yeah.
what are some of the pitfalls or common mistakes you saw in people around you, and then how did you avoid those so that you could become the successful person that you are today?
That's a great question, Steve. I would definitely say that majority of the people around me, they had, looking back on it now, I didn't realize it at the time, but their perspective when it came to money was very negative.
Okay.
And their viewpoint in terms of improving their situation was like, it's kind of like where they were is where they would always be, and
Oh, okay.
they never saw themselves as being able to improve their situation. And I mean, me personally, I was a great example of that. Being in a situation at a particular point in my life, like in my early 20s, and I had heard, basically by my early 20s, I realized, hey, these toys that I was buying, these cool cars and stuff like that, as much as I like them, they were causing so much stress in my life. I kind of wanted to fix that. And but I wasn't making much money. And I had heard that investing was the way to wealth.
Okay.
What I did not realize was that, investing without education was also a problem. And so I over leveraged myself. I got into real estate with a friend, and we bought a house that ultimately didn't flip. We were supposed to flip
Oh
it, and
no.
it didn't flip. We became landlords, and it was really, really bad. But anyway, I think at my lowest point, because the stress was so heavy, I would literally not even want to wake up and get out of bed. And
Okay.
so, at 20 years old, I should have been out having fun, but I was trying to do what I thought was smart. And I made this investment without proper education. So I guess two things I took from that. One, if you if you focused on the problem rather than focusing on the solutions, it really, really brings you down, and it turns off your receptors in terms of being able to identify opportunities. So I started hanging around, thankfully I don't even know how it happened, but I started hanging around people who were more successful than me. And I started picking up, not even realizing it, some of these different habits that they had. And then I started realizing, hey, if I wanted to be successful, I need to find successful people and try to mimic what they're doing. And once I did that, I started realizing, all sorts of different opportunities. And you mentioned return on investment. And what I realized was that, okay, given my current situation, my best return on investment was not to invest in real estate. My best return on investment, especially given the amount of capital I had available, was to invest in myself.
Mm,
Once I did that, I was able to make better choices. It was kind of like swinging an axe that's dull
yeah.
versus spending that money on sharpening that axe and then swinging it.
Yes.
And it made all the difference in my life. And
Yeah.
those benefits were compounding. But yeah, that was it for me.
Okay. Yeah. No. There's a great quote
Uh-huh.
by Jim Rohn,
Okay.
and he says,
I love
if
that guy.
somebody, yeah, me too. He says, if somebody is going down the wrong path,
Uh-huh.
they don't need motivation to speed them up. They need education to turn them around and get them on the right path. Right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I had a lot of that too, especially in starting my own business, where
Mm-hmm.
it was like, man, I had some painful life lessons to learn.
Mm-hmm.
But once
Mm-hmm.
I learned them, they were so valuable for my future success. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so learning to see mistakes as an education versus a setback was
Yes.
also a big paradigm shift
Mm.
for me. So, okay, another question here, because I know we're
Okay.
limited on time,
I
is
know.
what are some like wise financial tips or investments or strategies you think the average American is maybe missing? And if
Okay.
they implemented that at any income level, how could people be more successful? It's kind of a
Okay.
loaded question.
It kind of is. And it's like, my mind goes all over the place. And I'm thinking, okay, what can I share with everyone that everyone could benefit from? Because, okay. Um, Saving.
Okay.
Okay. And most people don't want to save. There's nothing glamorous about saving, right? That's boring. Um, I think the shift, and you mentioned the paradigm shift, your perspective is everything. You and I can be standing in the same room, but if we're standing at opposite ends of the room, you see different things. So when you shift your paradigm, you shift how you see things. And one thing for me was when I shifted my paradigm on saving, I did it at a time when I was hanging around a bunch of my friends who were not shifting their paradigms with me. And um, essentially, we would look at we all used to look at saving as sacrifice. When I shifted my paradigm, I began seeing saving as creating opportunities.
Okay.
And so it's like, okay, by me not wasting money on X, Y, and Z, I can now invest in something else, whether it be education or putting it into you know, most people think that they have to have a lot of money to invest in the stock market, and that's not true. There's so many different platforms now you can invest in, with fractional shares and things like that. So even little incremental savings here and there make huge differences. So I think shifting the mindset from saving being sacrifice into saving is creating opportunities was a massive paradigm shift for me. And I think everyone could probably benefit from that.
Yeah. One thing that I talk about in my book and with my private coaching clients is
Mm,
this idea that what you do
mm,
matters most for most of your life. Okay. So it's actually not these external investments that are going to be really good. It's actually what
right,
you can do matters most for most of your
right.
life. And what I mean by that is,
Okay.
let's say that somebody could set aside $100 a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the year, they're going to have $1,200. Well, think about how much money you'd have to have invested at like 5% interest to get $1,200 in interest, right? Or let's say that you could set aside $5,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
How much money would you have to have earning 5% to get the same 5,000? You'd have to have $100,000 earning 5% to make $5,000 compared to saving 5,000. And so then when you talk to somebody, especially like the average person like you and I grew up being, and
Mm-hmm.
those
Mm-hmm.
kind of households,
Mm-hmm.
and you ask them, what's easier, to be a good saver or to be a good investor that doesn't lose money? And if most people think about it, it's becoming the good saver,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's learning
Absolutely.
that discipline, and then each year that money grows and compounds,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden, even if you earned no interest but you could save $5,000 a year,
Mm-hmm.
10 years from now you've got $50,000.
Yeah.
And people, like, they can't wrap their mind around that, and so then
Mm.
they don't save. They
Right.
say YOLO, you only live once. Let's
Yep.
buy the cars that bring us
Mm-hmm.
stress. Let's
Mm-hmm.
buy the toys that bring us stress.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into too much house, and now, yeah, we have a house but we're house poor.
Exactly.
So yeah, some of that, but yeah, I think you're onto something there. I think there's so much value that comes in
Mm-hmm.
being a good saver. But then at the same time, I tell people, you can't save your way to wealth. At some point, you have to take savings and turn it into a business, or
Right.
savings and put it into an investment, or savings and put it into some kind of stream of income. So what are some areas, once you become a good saver, that
Mm-hmm.
you've found successful when it comes to being an investor?
Steve, you're hitting so many good points. You're getting me fired up, man. All right. So first of all, um, I would say one of the best things you could do is invest in yourself. And I know people have heard this before, and I know it sounds corny, I know it sounds cheesy, but when I say invest in yourself, I'll use myself as an example. Um, I was making maybe $10 an hour, $12 an hour, working at Best Buy, back in the day, fixing computers. And I had enough to save a little extra, and what I realized was, hey, I could invest in the stock market. In fact, I had an open brokerage account, and I was making small contributions, but I was looking at how little I was earning because my contributions were so small. And I'm not saying, like, because your contributions are small you shouldn't, but you need to look at your return on investment. So then I said to myself, okay, if I put $1,000 in the stock market, you know over the course of a year, let's just say hypothetically, I got 10% return on my money in the S&P. I'm gonna what's that, $100 at the end of the year? Okay, not bad, not a bad return. However, are there better options out there for me? And that's why personal finance is so personal. So at that point, I realized, hey, I'm already in the computer field. I'm not making anything, but what could I do to maybe increase my earning potential? Started looking at jobs that I didn't qualify for. And then I started looking, I made a list of the closest gap, the closest jump that I could make into that next income bracket. And I looked at, okay, what skills do I have and what skills am I missing? And I started to figure out what are the low hanging, biggest bang value for my buck skills that I could acquire. Identified a certification, spent like $1,500 on the certification. Within 6 months, I was earning 40% more money
Wow.
within
Okay.
6 months. So it's like, taking $1,500, and, if I was making, let's just say I was making $10 an hour, what's that, $20,000 a year. If I increase that by 40%, that's something like 8,000. So I turned $1,500 into 8,000
Yeah. Yeah.
recurring, and then it compounded. So now I could take that 8,000 and reinvest in myself into more education, or reinvest into some other form of investment, ultimately starting businesses and doing other things with it. But I think that a lot of people should consider their return on their investment.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
No.
that's it. What about
Uh,
you?
a mentor of mine said to me, because I kept saying, man, I want more, I want this, I want that. And
Right.
he said, you can have more, but you
Uh-huh.
have to become more.
Right.
And
Jeez.
you've got to have more skill set. You've got to be more
Yes.
personable.
Yes.
You've got to leverage yourself. That's one
Mm-hmm.
of the reasons that I wrote my books
Mm-hmm.
is I wanted to be able to reach more people with my message.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, but yeah, that's phenomenal advice. One thing I say with my private coaching clients is,
Mm-hmm.
um, it may make more sense to focus on getting a higher paying job than to become a good investor.
Right.
And if you're married, you
Mm-hmm.
cannot have two people earning low wages. At some point, you have to sacrifice and you have to say, we are going to figure out how to make you earn more money, right? And so you see that jump that way. So, but yeah, just focusing on skill sets, certifications, a degree, a switch
Mm-hmm.
in career, a different company, something that's going to pay you for the value that you bring to the organization. That right there, because
Yeah.
like you said, if you could go from 20 to 28,000, it's that extra 8,000 every year the rest of your life, not just
Yes.
one time, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, yeah, you can have more because you can become more, and
Mm-hmm.
investing in yourself is huge. Like
Mm-hmm.
I just spent like I think $75 on books last week.
Yeah.
I hadn't bought any in a few months, and I
Mm-hmm.
was just like, you know what? I know that there are big ideas in these particular
Yes.
books, and so I went ahead and bought them, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll pull the value out of those. I'll get my money back
Oh,
for those.
absolutely.
Yeah. So,
Absolutely.
well, hey, this has been awesome. Any
Mm-hmm.
last bits of advice before we wrap up that you want to share?
Yes. The last bit of advice I want to say is, and this is a hack that I learned, personal development is very, very important. It's very undervalued in my opinion. But one thing I learned to do is I learned to uh, make a personality shift. I changed my own identity. And
Okay.
so I became what I wanted to become before I was actually it in the physical sense. So, for example, um, before I started working out, I was super duper skinny. I used to be incredibly intimidated just walking into the gym. It was, unless I went in there with a partner or with a friend, I didn't even want to go because, the loud weights and, everyone was bigger than me. And, what I realized was that, hey, I really wanted to start working out, but, uh, I didn't know how to really, really get started. I started reading magazines, reading books, and I really began to see myself as those people. And I started realizing what they were doing. And I realized that, okay, if I want to become like this guy, I want to know what he's doing. And I started doing more and more, not all at once, but I'm going to start purchasing my own food. I'm going to eat healthier. I'm going to figure out, certain types of routines to do and this, that, and the other. Before I realized it, I was literally doing the things that they were doing, but I wasn't seeing the results. But what I later discovered was that as long as I continued to do it, the results began to show. And I think that's the exact same way with finance. Once you become who you want to be, and you start engaging and doing the habits that those who are already successful are also doing, it's inevitable that you achieve the same results. Kind of like a seed. You don't see the tree yet. You put the seed in the ground, you keep nurturing it, and then eventually you see the results. But that's just the way I see it.
Yeah, no, that's phenomenal advice. You need the habits that create wealth before the
Yes,
wealth, right?
bingo. And the
Yeah,
faith.
yeah, and the faith, because otherwise you're not going to take action, right? That faith is what pushes you forward to take that action. Another one
Yeah, yeah.
that I'll just leave people with is
Uh-huh.
uh, you dress for the job that you want to have or the
Ooh,
success that you
yes.
want to have, right? Like I work from home at a
Mm-hmm.
home office, and people are always shocked that I'm not in pajamas or,
Uh-huh.
my workout shorts or something. And I say, I dress for the level of income that I want to make.
Hmm.
and I want to be successful. And so, not
Hmm.
that my clothes are super expensive,
Hmm.
but I
Hmm.
always make sure to present myself well, because you
Hmm.
only get one shot at a first impression on the job or with a client or with customers. So yeah, dress for the success that you want to have. So
Absolutely.
well,
I
this
love
is
that one.
this has been awesome. If people want to learn more about you, how would
Hmm.
they go about connecting with you?
All right. Well, you can check me out on YouTube. My name is Ron Yates. I actually have a personal finance channel, which I spend the majority of my time on. But you'll also see my fitness channel, which is also Ron Yates, if you wanted to check that out. So
Okay.
yeah, they're both Ron Yates.
Oh, that's great. And if anyone
Mhm.
wants to learn more about me, you can look
Mhm.
up Stephen Gardner on YouTube and you'll see this face, or you can go to yourbridgeplan.com. But Ron, thank you very much for sharing your wisdom, taking time out of your very, very busy day to connect and share this information.
Likewise, brother. It's been a
Okay. Have a
pleasure.
good rest of your day.
You too, man.
Bye.
Bye.